Good evening, everybody. I just want to extend the regrets from Mrs. Pace and Mrs. Pinto, who couldn't be here this evening. And also just want to just say a few words about all the great things that have been happening in this community, in our schools. We have had quite a bit of success with OM. The last show that I saw at the high school, Shrek, I don't know how many of you had seen it, but it was fabulous, and I want to congratulate the cast and crew on that. What else am I missing? Science research has been phenomenal. We are so proud of you. Also, I had the pleasure of attending the Bard Honor Society last week, and we got a lot of new inductees, and we just have a lot to be proud of. So
I think we also had some winners in National History Day this year. That's hot on the press.
That's great. Yeah. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Gallagher.
Thank you so much. And tonight we have a real treat. We have some students from our marine science program and staff members here. We like to highlight some of our programs in the student showcase, and we thought, I've been hearing great things about our next 2 years, so I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gallagher and Board for inviting us here tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Rouse, who's the teacher of the marine science course, who will begin with an introduction on the curriculum of the program, and then we're excited to have the students come up and share about their experiences. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Dr. Gallagher for inviting us, as well as the administration and the board members. My name is Megan Rouse. I started the program 16 years ago. Actually, no, I'm sorry, 2016. And in a decade, we started with 20 students, and now we have 95 to 120 students a year taking the course. I have to thank Ms. Bloom, Karen Bloom, and Cody Armstrong as well, because they've taught some sections over the years, and they helped develop this program. Students in marine science, basically they have biology, chemistry, physics, and environmental science. So there's some pictures there of some of the work. We do have a whale watch trip. We do work in the ponds. There's Mr. Myers on our annual fishing trip, and we do water quality testing there. We're also lucky enough to have globally and locally scientists speak to our class. The EV Nautilus is actually a ship that travels all over the world. It's founded by Robert Fowler. You should know who he is. He's one of the top marine researchers at the University of Rhode Island. So they actually zoomed from that ship that's in that picture, which was really incredible. They gave us some up-to-date marine science research. We also talked to OSearch, and they did a shark tagging. So they actually tagged great white sharks, and they showed us that on the video, which was really unique. And then we do a Bali project. This particular year, we sent all of the projects over to Bali. Those are the fishermen holding some of the letters we sent, and they have those projects on their boats, so that will help their ecotourism in Bali. And we continue that program so that students can learn about coral, and then as well as understand each species that lives in that particular region, locally and globally. We also have some field experience locally. Captain Lou, the fishing vessel. I truly believe that fishermen know most about what's the pulse of the marine environment. And so that's a great opportunity for students to not only fish and learn how to fish, but also to see what's in the waterways, even right behind the Long Beach High School. We have New York Marine Rescue Center, where they rescue sea turtles and also seals. And then American Princess, where we're fortunate to see whales and also take data on the marine animals in that environment. And fortunately, like the Long Beach style, a lot of people come back and support the community, and we have alumni that came back and support our community. So Paige Carpenter, these are all my former track athletes, which is so exciting to see them come back. So I love reconnecting with them. But Paige Carpenter, she actually does research in the coral reefs of Belize, and as well as Costa Rica, so she spoke to our class. Lena Weiss comes every year, and she's a researcher in New England Aquarium. She talks about the kelp research that she does, and all the new research. She actually just tagged a shark recently, so she showed the students her tagging a shark, which is pretty incredible. And then we have Erin Brown. She works at the Cornell genetics lab, so she came in and showed some fruit flies to the students, and then showed how that works with the body plans of a lot of the organisms we were discussing in class. And just recently, Izzy Francesco connected with me. She's the Northeast Regional Manager for Surf Riders. So we're trying to think of ways the students can start forming like a citizen science project. And so these are all just the various things that we're doing in class, but I do have students here that would like to speak to you about some of the opportunities that they have for this course. Riley. This is Riley now.
Hi, my name is Riley Fowler, and last year, Mr. Rouse told me about an extra credit assignment for this class. It was a poster contest with STANIS, which is Science Teachers Association of New York, and NYSMA, New York State Marine Educators Association. And because of this poster contest, I was actually able to, well, I won the first place for the high school division. There were about 100 other kids, and I got first place. And I was able to go to the Jones Beach Nature Center, and we had awards there. And I was interviewed by the Herald, and there was an article about my poster contest. And I got to go to Maritime, where my poster was displayed there. Those photos are at Maritime. The photo on the left is the man standing next to me. It was actually the man who wrote our marine science textbook. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, his name was Thomas F. Green, and he's holding the book there. And I was able to meet several other people. Able to meet Darlene. I was able to listen to a presentation by one of the founding members of Help the Bay, Darlene Troge. And for those who don't know, Help the Bay is an organization that was created by 5 Native American women in the Shinnecock tribe, because in the Shinnecock tribe, they never had any proper sewage treatment. So their water, which was once very clean and pristine, which had a very vibrant ecosystem, ended up turning toxic. So nothing could survive in that water, and they didn't have any health. So these 5 women, Darlene Troge being one of them, were actually able to use kelp to filter the water. They grow kelp and use it as a natural filter without having to use any crazy technology, spend money that they don't have. So I was able to listen to the presentation that she gave. I was also able to listen to a presentation from an author and ecologist called Sabina. And I was actually able to get 3 books signed by him, which was pretty amazing. And this was the poster that I did. Mine was on the nitrogen cycle. There were several different things that you could have done it on, in several different ways. Some people did mathematical models, some people did written, some people did visual. I did both. There's a QR code in the corner, which links their Slack presentation. And just to sum it up, my presentation, my poster talked about how the nitrogen from fossil fuels, from sewage, and also just natural causes ends up in the waterways, and it causes a surplus of nutrients, which is essentially a buffet for bacteria, for bacteria and phytoplankton, which creates a really big problem because when there's too much phytoplankton, Then when they die, the detrifiers, which decompose the phytoplankton, end up using so much oxygen for this decomposition process that there's not enough left for organisms to survive. So very few end up surviving. And when they do, they often end up very sick. Even people. There are a lot of different types of algae that can turn the water toxic. So if you go to the water when the algal blooms are there, and you can get really sick. Even just salt spread that has the algae in it can make you extremely sick. And we can get away from that, but marine life cannot. And the other problem with the sewage is that every time that it rains in Island Park, I don't know who lives in Island Park and who doesn't, but we are told that you can't go in the water for 24 hours after it rains. And the reason for that is that the bay is such a small enclosed body of water that with all of the sewage that's being released from all over Long Island into the bay, there's just too much. So you end up with an influx of bacteria. So if you were to go in that water, you could end up with all kinds of infections. And it's a really big problem in Island Park. And they're actually trying to come up with a solution to it. One potential thing they are trying to do is potentially reroute the sewage to the ocean so that it'll be more spread out. But this project is still underway. So this is an ongoing problem that we all have to work to deal with in Island Park. Problem that never used to exist before. And yeah, in conclusion, this was my nitrogen cycle project, and because of this project and this class, I was able to meet some really amazing people, get the opportunity to learn about some really amazing things, and discover that I'm very passionate in marine science and ecology, and that that's what I want to do when I graduate.
So throughout my experience in the marine science classroom, I've truly enjoyed the opportunity to engage in real-world experiences. When we do labs, we observe local plankton populations, and I was amazed by the diversity of the life under the microscope, as well as the critical role plankton play in the marine ecosystems. We also examined things from our local area in high school, such as the pond, where we examined a bearded sponge and learned about the importance of natural water filtration, which came to the conclusion that sponges can filter large volumes of water, helping to maintain healthy aquatic environments, as well as providing important habitats for worms and crabs. Through our other labs we've done in the classroom, we also designed and constructed our own water filtration system, which gave us a deeper understanding of both the process and the cost involved in cleaning water. We had to consider efficiency, materials, and overall expense, and it was surprising to see how complex effective filtration could be. Through this work, we also learned that beyond visible pollutants like bottles, straws, and fishing lines, one of the leading sources of plastic pollution actually comes from everyday laundry in the form of microfibers. When I did this lab, I was amazed by the amount of garbage and pollutants we found inside of the boluses that were sent to us. So just done another lab where we dissected an albatross pellet sent from Midway Island, and we recorded our findings to the research center in Hawaii for a shared data bank. The albatross is a highly pelagic bird, often spending years at sea before returning to the remote island. The albatross feeds primarily on squid, fish, crustacean, yet alongside all the squid beaks we discovered a lot of fishing line and plastic within the samples. This served as a powerful indicator of ocean health and the widespread impact of marine pollution. Finally, we have had many opportunities to hear from guest speakers, one being Elizabeth Nyan through NMMF, who spoke to us about marine mammals and the serious impacts of environmental pollutants. She also highlighted the growing issue of entanglement in fishing gear, which poses a major threat to many species. She focused on the critically endangered vaquita, a small species of dolphin with an estimated population of only 12 individuals remaining. We learned how they are often caught in ghost nets, which are abandoned or illegal fishing nets set with totuaba, a fish targeted for its highly valuable swim bladder. This presentation was both eye-opening and powerful, showing us the real and urgent challenges facing marine life today and reinforcing the importance of conservation efforts. Thank you.
Guys, I'm Maddie. I'm also a student in the marine science class. My part of the presentation was the hands-on learning. It was the hands-on learning in marine science and the project-based learning and field trips. Along with Elizabeth, as Lisette said, I also found Lena Weiss's lecture to also be very relevant and impressive. She shared many insights into many aspects of her work, emphasizing how important and effective communication is when it comes to creating and supporting environmental laws. She spoke on her work on kelp restoration projects, along with her involvement with the Blue Lab, as well as her research on whales, sharks, and lobster crabs. Her presentation highlighted how science, communication, and policy all work together to protect marine ecosystems. As you can see on the bottom left is some pictures from Lena White's presentation and the aquarium she works along with. She's a researcher in New England who works in New England Aquarium. Students were able to listen to a professional researcher who completes her work in an aquarium, and she also explained her work on various marine projects, and students were actively engaged in the presentation and they're really eager to learn. Along with Lena Weiss, we also completed a project called the Volley Roaster Project, in which each group researched different aspects of the reef, and we created an informational brochure and presented their findings to the class. My group studied types of coral in the reef, while other groups explored additional components of the reef ecosystem. This project taught me how to help protect these reefs and be more environmentally friendly. Throughout the year, we have taken the time to go through each group's topic in depth, allowing us to build a comprehensive understanding of marine environments. And that can be seen at the top right of the presentation, which is the research project. Students completed the research on a specific species in a specific coral reef. We completed a brochure with many colors, and we all worked together, which is really cool. Along with those two different project-based learnings, we also did a great white shark migration project using ProSearch, which is a website that you can look up online. It's a tracking site to investigate why great white sharks travel long distances. And in my personal opinion, I believe that they migrate for key breeding and mating, along with the search for warm prey-rich waters and whirlpools, which are called warm water eddies. This led us to infer that they are drawn there due to increased nutrients and a greater availability of food. Research on the sharks, this helped me learn new things about the ocean I didn't know before. That can be seen in the top left, the students working presenting the posters, one of them being me and my partner. The project was a hands-on project learning about great whites and why they travel to warmer climates. The project was followed by a shark dissection, which we just completed last week. We examined the outside of the shark along with the inside shark, and students really got to see, what that's all about and how they eat and how they digest and all that. And the type of shark it was a dogfish shark. It was like the inside, it was pretty cool. Along with projects, we also go on marine field trips. One of the most memorable experiences was visiting the Riverhead Aquarium, where we observed one of the largest closed system coral reef displays in the Western Hemisphere. We also learned more about sharks through their local exhibits, which supported our research for both the Great White Shark Migration Project and our shark dissection. During our shark unit, I was able to identify male and female sharks because of a lesson taught in the aquarium, which was that male sharks have claspers where female sharks do not. I was also able to identify specific sharks in the unit based on the ones I looked at in the aquarium. This is because we went to the aquarium for the shark unit, which was really interesting. During the trip, we also visited the Marine Rescue Center, where we got to see and learn about rescued sea turtles and seals native to our area. It was really cute. At the aquarium, it focused on rehabilitation, aquarium exhibits, the conservation efforts, and it was educational and interactive. Along with the aquarium, another field trip I especially enjoyed was the whale watching cruise. where we observed a humpback whale, spinner sharks, and a pod of approximately 75 dolphins. An unforgettable experience of marine life in its natural habitat right in our own backyard. I was able to watch a whale lift its flipper in the air and splash back into the water. We will also be visiting the Fire Island Lighthouse next month. At the beginning of the year, we studied shipwrecks, buoyancy, and marine navigation, along with marine technologies such as remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs. This upcoming trip will help bring those concepts to life, and I'm super excited to go on it. We are very grateful for these hands-on experiences which make learning both engaging and meaningful. During the whale watching trip, we observed marine wildlife, we collected data, we looked at real-world ecology, and various aquatic marine life was visible. It was very educational and interactive as well. Going into the Fire Island Lighthouse, I hope to look at coastal history, maritime navigation, look at ecosystem exploration, and it is a landmark in history.
My name is Mateo. I've only been in the marine science class since this year, but I thought that if I lived near the beach, I might as well learn a bit about the animals near the beach. And I learned so much more than that, and I was actually really inspired by the animals that we learned about because some of them I thought were extinct, and I found out that they weren't extinct, and it turned out to be some of my family animals, like the nautilus. I also made a pajama shark. These are part of my ceramic projects. These are jars, and the lids are the animals. I don't know, I just always felt inspired by marine science, and being in the marine science class helped me really come out of that shell of being creative with the animals that I learned about. So.
Yes.
Thank you.
As you can see these pictures over here, students really love to learn on field trips, and we would love to experience more opportunities to actively participate in marine exploration. Outside the classroom especially. For example, we hope to potentially bring back the fishing trip on the boat that us students go on every year. Unfortunately, it was denied this year, and we're hoping to go to the pier, but it would really be great to bring back the fishing boat, because I feel like students would be able to look at more diverse fish where, on a pier you get to just kind of be in one area, but the fishing boat really diversifies the marine, the marine life, seeing, going from place to place on the boat. So yeah, in conclusion, that's the vision.
Thank you again so much for inviting us to speak here tonight. In addition to what everybody spoke about, this is aligned with the new New York State climate education standards that we're going to be looking at how to weave in those standards into topics in legislation. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All I can say is I wish I was in high school because I would be taking this class. How cool is that? The overhead rescue center is one of the best trips I've ever done. It's a great trip. Thank you so much for sharing this and for showing us how much you've learned, and you could hear the passion in your speech. I don't know if the board wants to make any comments.
May I?
Yeah.
So, whenever we hear from the students, you are the highlight of the meeting. Because we do this to help provide programs that will inspire you and help you find your way. And your presentation today, all of you are very different, and you could all hear the passion and the inspiration in your voices as you spoke about marine science. And Ms. Grouse, Ms. Tercy, thank you so much for bringing such a vibrant program, for loving it, and for ensuring that it's good for our kids to grow and learn the hands-on, the contests, the creativity piece, the fishing trips. I think it's all beautiful for life skills, especially just as our last presenter stated, we do live by the beach, and we are very fortunate to have the ocean basically in our backyard. And you only love that which you understand, and you are showing that you love the beach now because you understand it. So I thank you for that, and I hope that you spread this passion and inspiration to your friends on the beach, or if you see somebody throwing trash on the beach, tell them to pick it up. See people using extra fertilizer on their lawn, tell them that extra nitrogen is not good for the runways. Use your voices
from what you've learned in class to help better your community. I just think it's wonderful. I do have one question though. We do have a pier outside of the Nike school. I remember, because on the boat you can see it. Do you ever get a chance to utilize that, or is that not for students to utilize? I know that you said the fishing trips are better, but we do have that pier there.
I know after Sandy, it was destroyed, I don't know if it was rebuilt.
It's rebuilt, and it's actually been cleaned over there. So that might be a nice resource.
I don't know if you can fish off that pier, but it's a cool thing to look at.
Yeah, it's a cool place to actually to walk down and to observe, because when you do have low tide, you will get to see a lot of life living. So it's actually something you might want to experience. But thank you.
I have a couple of questions. First off, I love your presentation. Plastic pollution has been a passion of mine for many, many years, and I know Ms. Rouse, you were involved in that as well. Are we doing any better? What can we do? What have you discovered about the health of our oceans and our waterways? Can somebody enlighten me a little bit about that? Yeah.
So something that a lot of people don't realize is that most of the plastic pollution is not from the plastic that you can easily see, like water bottles. It's from, like, I think it was said, it's microplastics. So most of it is little tiny pieces of confetti or stickers that you never see unless you actually peer into the sand and try to see it. And they are currently trying to do research to mitigate that, but it's still a real big problem, especially since our clothing has polyester in it, plastic. So it is, I don't know if it's getting any better per se, but we are becoming more aware, which is a step in the right direction. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you for coming out. I just had 3 comments. I thought the greatest remark was, I've sort of come out of my shell. I don't know whether that was an intentional thing, but I think you all had the presentation, did a wonderful job. My first reaction was, I'm an old dog and I've been around a long time. And if I were to go back 18 years and have this presentation, I dare say it'd probably be mostly young men that would be giving the presentation. And I'm just delighted to see young ladies stepping up now in terms of science. We're notified in terms of the numbers of students that got awards at Live 7, big science competitions. And the numbers of young ladies was outstanding and overwhelming in terms of the total number. So I think in a sense you're all kind of pioneers, and I'm kind of grateful for that. And I thank you for the effort you put in terms of doing that, because it's not easy. Second, I'm delighted to see the names of former students. I thank the track coach and science teacher. Who are connecting and remaining in contact with former students, because they can be such a great resource for our kids. Not only in terms of the learning, but maybe in terms of schools and where you might want to go to college and what you might want to do in life. And do I like working in the Boston Aquarium, and that you might like it too. So it's such a great resource. So I applaud you for that. And thank you for that as well. I thought the presentations were very interesting. And usually at this time, we usually ask, since it's the middle of budget time, is there anything you need? Other than the restoration of the fishing trip, which I heard, is there anything else that you might want to make a pitch for, because now is the time? Excuse me?
The classroom, maybe upgrades to the classroom, like more room equipment.
Okay. All right, that's good. The other plan, yes.
I don't know about this year, but I know a problem we had last year was that there wasn't any marine science books in the library, so when you wanted to work on it during the school day, you couldn't always because the classroom was locked or you couldn't get there, and I know a bunch of us students have very busy lives with sports and clubs and other homework, so we utilize study hall, but if you don't have the textbook there, then you can't do your homework. So, possibly more.
Okay, good points. Well, sure, yes, please.
I would like to add to that, I think that there should be a marine specific classroom. I noticed that when we did our dogfish dissection lab, Ms. Grouse was maneuvering herself around the classroom with a cart and the dogfish were in like a bucket, and it was extremely difficult for her to be able to get around all the desks and chairs, because we have the lab desks, but then we have like a 4x5, like 20 seat like section in the classroom, and it's just difficult because, you know, there's spills and there's smells, and, you know, but it would definitely benefit if there was a marine specific classroom.
And they all seem to be very reasonable requests, and we'll certainly take into consideration. And my final point is oftentimes we find ourselves on a second graders learning how to swim. I'm just delighted that our high school kids are learning about the ocean. Since it's so much a part of our life here, it should almost be mandatory for kids in this barrier island to learn about the ocean and how best to protect it. So once again, I applaud you people for being pioneers and coming out tonight, for making reasonable requests, and for doing all you do for high school. Thank you very much. And thank you to the teachers.
Okay, do you want to add something? Something else you'd like to say? You can, or you don't have to.
I would add maybe some better equipment for the dissections, because I noticed that when we do dissections, sometimes our blades are a little bit too dull to actually cut through any of the specimens.
Yeah. Okay, good point.
But, you know,
We'll work on all of that. We do have, you know, a beautiful new dedicated marine science lab that was approved in our bond process. So some of you might have maybe graduated by then, but it is coming. And the other stuff we can work on.
Come back as alumni.
Yeah.
See it, love that.
Yes.
Just to add on to what was saying, said last year we were trying to fry open clams, and I genuinely thought that I was gonna break a finger. Because they were not fried open. And we were just like hammering it, and I thought I was like, my finger. So, yeah, better equipment, please.
Thank you very much.
And listen, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you have other things, more exciting things to do, we understand, just you can feel free to, you know, go for ice cream or something. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Mr. DeVito, we'll throw to you.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. So this evening, we're going to be talking about pupil personnel services. We're going to talk about what we're proposing for the 2026-2027. So pupil personnel, you'll see that on the next slide is special education, but it's more than special education. It's health services, it's psychological services, so forth, and we'll talk about all that as well. So what we're looking at, and the function code is where you find it in the budget, is A2250 is special education. And you see actually a decrease in what we're proposing for next year of about 1%. Before we talk about the specific decrease, let's talk about what's included in the budget. So the proposed special education program budget includes funding for teachers for special classes, integrated co-teaching classes, resource rooms, speech and home-bound services. Also occupational and physical therapists as well as behaviorists. Out-of-district placements, including BOCEs, other public schools and private schools, including residential schools, teacher assistants, teacher aides, materials, technology, supplies, so students can access their education. So special education and this function really encompasses a lot of our services for students. It's not just the teachers, but it's also all of these other, what sometimes we call related services, and not just in-district teachers, but our out-of-district placements, the programs outside of the district. All of that funding is in that function of A2250. So the special education program budget was proposed, includes our contractual salary increases for staff, pursuant to our contracts, a net increase district-wide of 0.6 FTE. So just a slight increase in what we need in terms of special education teachers based on the needs of our students. There are code corrections that you'll see for next year based on some staff shifts among schools, and then we always do updates to the percentage of staff included and their salaries included in grants or 4410, which is a special education pre-K program. But what I mean by that is that sometimes we'll have staff that we think are going to be in a certain area, what we plan now, and then over the next 6 months, there's some shifts take place, so then we have to do some corrections. So if you do look at that line by line, when we put that on the web next week, you may see some changes in the code. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a reduction or an increase in the program. It could just be a shift based on what was in the grant and what's covered in the general fund budget. So that's what I mean by that comment there. So the main driver of the decrease in terms of the overall decrease of about 1% is our decrease in out-of-district placements at private schools due to some of the students who are aging out and some shifts of those students to public schools. So that really amounts to that slight decrease and offsets some of the increases in other areas of the budget. So in addition to our general fund budget, and when I talk about the general fund budget, I'm talking about A2250. In that budget, as you can see, what we're proposing is just shy of $22 million. Besides the funding that we have in our general fund budget of about $22 million for those different teachers and other related services that I talked about, we also have two federal grants that support our special education students. And one is called the 611 grant, that's about 1.2 million. And the second is the 619 grant, and that's a small amount of about 62,000, which is really just for our younger students. And what we can do with the funding in those grants is we can put some additional services, some physical therapy, social work, what we call BCBAs, or Board Certified Behavior Analysts, or RBTs, Registered Behavior Technicians. We have our new Assistant Director of Special Education in one of the grants. 611, we also have professional development in there and some other supportive services like the counselor app we talked about last year. That's in one of the grants, as well as some supplies. So we really try to leverage whatever federal funding is available to the district, and we use it to really support our special education program and the services that are in our general fund budget. So that's our special education program, just the highlights and what is included for next year, and some of the drivers of some of the changes in the different codes. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about health services, and health services are our nurses, the bulk of what goes on in our health offices, so the nurse and some of the clerical staff there. And you'll see just a slight adjustment, a slight increase, and it's really based on some slight adjustments in staff allocations in the current year. So what we had planned for the current year, we needed to add a little bit of additional this year, and so we need to put it in next year's budget. So it's not so much a change from the current year to next year, but just some adjustments based on the current year. And you see here, we had a budget for one assignment of a 0.6, and it turned out it's really a 1.0. So that's an adjustment in that funding. And that's A2815 is the code, the function in the general fund budget where you'll find all of our nursing services. The next two codes, A2820 for psychological services and A2825 for social worker services. You see in the psychological services, you see an increase of about $107,000. And I'd like to just point out the note for a second. When we talked about program last year, we talked about 2 new district-wide psychologists that we were going to be hiring. And one we said was going to be funded through a federal grant, the other one, unfortunately, was not part of the budget of the current year, so the funding needs to be allocated for next year. We did a budget transfer for this year in order to cover that second district-wide psychologist. So again, that's more of an adjustment in the current year, and next year these two reflect that additional funding that's needed. So we have 2 new district-wide psychologists in the current year. In the social work services, there's no real change in allocation of district-wide of our social workers. It's just an adjustment into what was covered by a grant and then what's covered in the general fund budget. So like I said at the onset, sometimes we think a certain percentage is covered in a grant, and then it turns out that it changes, so we have to make some adjustments in the current year. And so next year reflects those adjustments we've made in the current year, but no addition of social work services. It's the same allocation on a district-wide basis. The next is what we call pupil personnel services. That's again the state code description at A2830. And what this is included here is our executive director of PPS, our registrar, as well as staff to perform support functions. And because we are expecting to have one of our staff members, one of our support staff members retire at the end of June. The vacancy for that retirement will be at a lower cost than a new hire, so that's why you see a reduction there. Not that there's a reduction in staff, but just an adjustment based on what we're projecting for that new hire for next year. And that's the highlights of that pupil personnel function A 2830. We're coming to the close of our budget development process. This is really our last meeting to talk about major function areas. The next meeting, which is April 14th, will be budget adoption. We'll have a presentation and we'll talk about district as a whole. We'll kind of recap what we've done. And on April 14th is the budget adoption, like I said, where the board will then adopt whatever final budget they want to present to the voters. That becomes the board's adopted budget. May 19th is the budget vote, when the community has a chance to actually vote on the budget. It's always the third Tuesday in May. And the week before is our budget hearing, where anyone in the community can come and talk about the budget that the board had adopted on April 14th. It is not an opportunity to change anything in the budget, but it's an opportunity to speak about it. And so there's one more meeting, April 14th, where we can get input from the community, where the board can talk about what they like to include or what they'd like to eliminate. And we'll also talk about our revenue projection. So we'll talk about where we are in state aid. We don't have a final state aid number yet because we don't have a final state budget yet, but hopefully by April 14th we will. There's been some discussions about whether there'll be a 1% increase in foundation aid or a 2% increase in foundation aid, right? So right now we're looking at perhaps a 2% increase in foundation aid, because that's what's been talked about lately, a change from what was in the governor's executive budget. We'll talk about other revenue projections, and then the board will decide whether they want to put the tax limit. And that will be at the April 14th budget adoption meeting. And that's it for this evening. Thank you for listening. Does the board have any questions first?
Just a comment from me. First off, thank you. You always break it down, make it simple, simplify it for us, so I appreciate that. And it's nice to see a few places where it actually went down and not up, so thank you for that.
Mr. DeVito, thank you so much for your presentation, for your transparency, and all that goes into our special education program. So I am pleased to see the decreases, of course, just like Ms. Kelsey said. Do you feel that this budget will be enough to maintain and take care of our special ed population?
Well, I'll have to defer to my special education PPS colleagues. We have meetings where we talk about what the needs are for our students, and we spend a lot of time at these meetings. And we talk line by line, code by code, to see if the funding is sufficient, talking about the needs of our students. And there's always a give and take to make sure that we're as efficient as possible, but also as comprehensive as we need to be. So, based on that, I look to my special ed colleagues to say, do you also feel comfortable with what's being presented this evening? And I see some heads shaking yes, so I'm going to say yes to you, that what we're presenting is really a team effort and is our best projections for taking care of our students for next year.
Thank you. So you mentioned there are some materials, technology, and supplies so the students can access their education. What are some examples?
Right, so I'm just going to preface at the answer for a second. So in our schools, we have material budgets, and we give an allocation per student of a certain amount of school supplies and basic materials that we know that they're going to be needing throughout the school year. Anything that a special education student needs to access their education, something that's additional, and I'm just going to, if you don't mind, Dr. Brancaccio, if you can give a few examples, because I know that you can say it much better than I can, so.
So for example, if a student needed assistive technology so that they were able to see materials enlarged in some way, that there was some software package that needed to be added to a device, that would come under our supply code. If we had a student that needed an augmentative communications device separate from their device, because it's what they need to be able to communicate, that would go under a supply code or a technology code. So similar to those things, that's what we're seeing.
It's actually pretty amazing the technology that we have today to see how we can help our students, right? I'm sure there's probably a plethora of other type of supplies that our kids might need that you have, that we can access now thanks to technology and AI. So thank you for that. And just a question, Dr. Gallagher, or Dr. McCutcheon, really quick, how do we find the counselor app is working this year?
Well, you know, at our last mental health and wellness, we've been updating the committee on use. I would say it's been used more by staff than by students. But I have gotten feedback that the students who are using it, it's been really impactful for them. I happened to be speaking with Ellen Daza the other day, and she said that many of our ENL families are using it because typically, especially in the current climate, they have not been able to access counseling as easily as native speaking families. And it is available in Spanish as well. And it's free to them. So it's a great, so that's a long way of saying, I think for the people who are using it, it's been very impactful. I think it was 85% of the people who used it had never accessed a mental health service before. So that's a big deal.
So Doctor, just remind me, is it just for our secondary students?
Yes. Yes.
Do we find that we might need it for our elementary students as well?
I don't think so. I don't think that our elementary culture here would support that. And even I think we opted to do an opt-in where parents must give permission actively, and then students can access it. Sometimes other districts have done it where everyone gets access, and then they do the permission. But I really do think parents need to be involved in those decisions, and we've gotten feedback from our elementary parents that they don't think it's a good idea for their child to be texting a counselor at that age, which I kind of agree with.
Thank you. That's the end of my questions. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I just have a few questions. First, thank you, Mr. DeVito. The first one is I noticed in the presentation that this is a request for a 0.6 FTE teacher. Where is that teacher going to be, or where is it projected to be?
Comfortable? At
Lindell, okay. Second point, since annual reviews are presently going on, it's just the end of March, and you have April and May, probably June, and maybe into July. Do you think you can speak with reliability that this is going to be the package? I mean, there aren't going to be any hidden problems coming up in those reviews that you think might tip the balance in terms of some of the fund codes?
I'm pretty confident, just based on years of our knowledge over time, knowing the students. There's always some possibility of, outliers either way, right? Are generating our expenses to send students out of district, but sometimes we wind up bringing students in. I'm pretty confident that there won't be a significant change or request.
And talking about confidence, how confident can we be that Washington will undercut us in terms of withdrawing funds for special ed? Can we be confident moving forward that we won't hear from Washington that certain funds have been cut, restricted? Then it'll be up on us to make up the difference.
Well, you never do know, but I know that based on the history of what's happened over the past couple of years, there's a lot of threats that are made at the beginning, and it scares everyone, and then the administration, kind of pulls back, right? And it doesn't really come to fruition. So based on that track record, I guess I feel comfortable saying that I think it's going to be hard to cut funding for special education nationwide. I mean, these are students that really need it. We rely on it to the tune of about $1.2 million. Some districts rely on it more than that. So I think that it would be really hard to pull that away.
Okay. And my last question or comment concerns last year in the budget, there was an appropriation made to 2 district-wide psychologists, which was a novel kind of request. I didn't quite think I could support it. I did, but I'd just like to know, given the year or whatever, the 8 months we've been into the school year, has that innovation of the 2 district-wide psychologists proved to be beneficial to schools and to more ability to the kids that they're supposed to be servicing?
So the answer is yes. The 2 positions have a caseload. They're
supporting the students that are out of district and their families, so there's direct attention to those caseloads.
And how many kids do we have out of district? Approximately?
60.
In the 60s.
60, well, okay, thank you.
So I do believe it's been extremely helpful. I think that they've been able to also be a liaison to the buildings for students that may need an out-of-district placement. It also provides us with the relationship that we've had in the past to continue, so that when we are looking and seeking for placements, we're competing with other districts. So I think that relationship goes a long way to helping find those placements. So I do think overall it has been extremely beneficial to families and students.
Okay, well, thank you for proposing it last year, and congratulations on the success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions and comments from the public on work session topic only? Board of Education, new and old business?
I just, at the last presentation in elementary schools, it was proposed that in the budget, there'll be increased phys ed classes in the elementary schools. Where is that time coming from, firstly? And secondly, how was it arrived at that it was phys ed rather than cursive or literacy or math or science or art as the extra?
So we're replacing what was called either FLES or Spanish, depending on how long you've been here. The world language special that was once a 6-day cycle. We're instead moving that instruction to the Spirit program, where students will have the opportunity to be introduced to a variety of languages. With the advent of programs like Duolingo and Babbel, that's much more possible, and it's a better way to teach language instruction. The reason we put phys ed in is that it's been a consistent request of our community that our students have more physical education time and less of that structured PE time at lunchtime. This will allow for example, 4th and 5th grade to perhaps have a chorus or a band rehearsal or a lesson at lunchtime because they're not locked into that additional phys ed space to meet phys ed time to meet the mandate.
Thank you. And just my last question is, am I ever going to see Mandarin offered as a elective in terms of language in a regular traditional service delivery?
Probably not from a human. Well, because it is difficult to find people who are certified in Mandarin and something else. And once you hire a teacher on a tenured track, if a program isn't supported enough, if it's not a full-time schedule, there's also frankly a shortage of Mandarin teachers in New York State. So they tend to go to districts that have larger districts with this possibility for a full-time hire in a learning program.
You know, as I listen to marine science and the other presentations, student workshops, I just think we're being somewhat negligent in terms of the not offering that as an elective for our middle and high school kids. And I'm not saying we're not making effort, but I think we need to make increased efforts because that's the way the world's going. It's the United States and China, and it's just becoming almost mandatory.
Well, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, I started to look at some different language acquisition software, and I started with Spanish because I can speak some Spanish, but then I said, let me do something I can't speak. So I went to Mandarin, and by the end of a full lesson, I could go out and order at a restaurant in Mandarin. It was really, really good, high-quality instruction. So this avenue may open up other avenues for us to provide a bigger variety of instruction for our students. It's not just Mandarin, it's Arabic, it's, languages that are up and coming in the world that are helpful for our students to know, German, Russian.
With all due respect to the parents, with the 2 to 3 extra periods a month, so short visit is the best use of that time in an academic setting. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
So my question is really for our high school representative right here. I know that we just had our high school Olympics. Could you just give us your feedback on what it was like on Friday? What do you think were the strong points? And if you could make it better, what would you do?
Okay, so first I'll talk about like the actual events that we had.
That'd be great.
So for Class Olympics, first I want to congratulate all the classes that came to participate and really showed out. Like we had a great showing this year of school spirit. In the actual Olympics in the gymnasium for all the events, we had 2 new events. We had knockout, and we bought this like really big inflatable bounce house. And like we're not renting it, we bought it. Like this is gonna be used for years now. And you get to see 4 people in the middle of the bounce house hit each other for like, it's like a jacket, the big inflatable thing.
Sounds like fun.
So much fun. I had a great time. Of course, I found there's no headshots. I didn't want injuries. But so getting those actual like new events in there really like got the crowd going. I feel like, and we had great student participation in the events. And then after school, we had a great turnout for the skits. You know, I've heard from many people that the skits were very funny, and I'm glad the seniors took the win this year. We couldn't lose to the juniors again. So that was great. Some strong points, I think, bringing in those new events, the amount of school spirit we saw, teacher participation. I love the fact that so many teachers came to participate. I want to highlight somebody, Mr. Bloom. He's very competitive when it comes to teachers.
That's nice. I love to hear that. That's great.
So if I had to do things better, I'd probably say that probably a little more during the Spirit Week, we could have promoted those days a little better, and that would allow the students to, as the build, like we had like the delay because of the snowstorm and stuff, but probably just advertise those days more. And I just wanted to say that there's so many opportunities to be involved through Class Olympics, like whether that be just actually partaking in the events, buying a school shirt, actually just cheering on your friends during the events. There's so many opportunities to be involved and have that sense of belonging. Like you can ask anyone who's ever been in student organization with Class Olympics. If you spend 6 hours with somebody in the auditorium after school until like 10 o'clock at night rehearsing a skit, you're going to become friends with them. And I made some of the best memories and connections ever through Class Olympics. And I highly encourage anybody entering high school who's already in high school to really just see this opportunity and take it, because it's a great experience.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was great.
Questions and comments from the public?
Okay. Announcements, Long Beach Classroom Teachers Association.
Karen School, WCTA. First, thank you to Ms. Grouse, Ms. Hersey, and all those kids. I will echo what they said too. I think just something we need to think about is how much it has grown. And we're talking 5 sections that we have right now. So it's very hard to keep the same budget and have 5 sections and still be able to do all the things that these kids would like to do. So I really would, we all would appreciate that there would be a consideration of that. In addition, thank you to Mr. Pino for that presentation. We've been following along, so one more to go. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes? Group C, anybody here? Okay. PTA? Thank you for all you do. And student organization, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, or is that pretty much what your update was?
Pretty much.
Yeah, congratulations on a great Class Olympics. I think it's a highlight of the school year for you guys.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Always great.
It's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Jim, because it's a credit to you that you're able to sit through a meeting like this in terms of the presentation and the options, the many that you can be doing. But your service is much appreciated by us. Your perspective is much appreciated by us. And I personally wanted to thank you for your time and your energy and how well you presented yourself in the case for the Olympics on behalf of the students in the SO. You did a great job, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you really did. Thank you. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion. Have a great night,
Everybody. Have a nice holiday break.